Yo guys, I am here again to talk about anime, and this time it will be about One Piece, and we will be focusing on, for sure, the debatable #1 most favorite character of One Piece, simply because this swordsman Marimo exists and because of this one-handed, red-haired, scarred-faced cool pirate. But he is one of the favorites, and that's irrefutable, Monkey D. Luffy. I made this video because I'd like to recall the epic fights our Straw Hat Captain had, and that I'd like to highlight these epic fights before the world of anime is wrecked once this is animated. Like for real, the moment this epic transformation is animated, everyone will be talking about it, and we will forget that many other animes still exist. Anyways, let's go right away to our top 7. The 7th in our list is the fight between Luffy and Magellan. I am pretty sure that 60% of you watching this video do not consider that this is one of Luffy's epic fights, and that almost all of you never even thought of this fight as epic. But man, remember that in this fight, Luffy almost died. I mean, in almost all of Luffy's fights, he fought with his life on the line and even lost a lot of times before totally defeating his opponent. But in this case, Luffy really was about to die. He was totally helpless against his foe Magellan, the chief warden of Impel Down and the current user of the Venom fruit. Unlike Luffy's other fights, he never had the second fight or even the third match because he was totally helpless. He was drowned in venom, all of his attacks injure him in return, and he never had the chance to even fatally injure Magellan. Without Bone Clay to save his ass, without Bone Clay to save him, he would have died in Impel Down. That is why I consider this one of Luffy's epic fights. Another reason is the fact that he fought an opponent he never had a chance of defeating without showing his back. He faced Magellan head-on and fearlessly just to get to level 6 prison of Impel Down where his late brother Ace was imprisoned. And for that, this fight deserves a spot in this 7. Luffy versus Bellamy. Man, I really want to put this fight at the top of the list, to be honest. Like the top 1 most epic fight of Luffy. But I have to be fair. This fight might be very epic, but this matchup between Luffy and Bellamy was unfair right from the beginning. Luffy was already way stronger than Bellamy at this point, so it wasn't worth the effort of fighting this to be the #1. So, Luffy's fight against Bellamy is the 6th in our list. This fight has one of the most satisfying punches in the series. But before we go there, let's recall first how their fight came to be. At first, Luffy just ignored Bellamy back in Jaya Island, thinking that he isn't worth the time. He even let Bellamy ridicule him and make fun of him just because he dreamt of going to Ace Sky Island. He left the bar without even a word and totally battered and blooded. But after Bellamy stole the hard-earned gold of his new friend's cricket, Mont Blanc the cricket to be specific, he stormed back into town to recover the stolen goods. Bellamy mocked Luffy for having his ridiculous dream and even mocked him as a pirate. Bellamy with his spring fruit abilities landed a lot of punches on Luffy, and Luffy was just receiving them head-on. But when Luffy said, like bang, he became Saitama. This punch just showed how unmatched the two are and how big the gap is between them. It was a very satisfying fight, but still remains as the 6th in this list. Luffy versus Crocodile. Well, this is very obvious. Luffy's fight against Crocodile is, I think, one of the best and epic fights of Luffy. In this fight, Luffy faced for the first time a big shot of Grand Line, the former member of the 7 Warlords of the Sea and the user of Sand Logia Devil Fruit. What made this fight very memorable is that Luffy faced Crocodile 3 times before emerging victorious, and that this was Luffy's first taste of how cruel Grand Line is. This was the first time Luffy became helpless in front of true power. He was still ignorant of Haki, and I don't think the term Haki was even in Oda's mind this time. Anyways, this fight was really epic because this was a fight between 2 Devil Fruit users of different caliber. Their first fight was in the desert where Luffy was impaled with Crocodile's hook. Then their second fight was when Luffy cleverly used water to counter his sand ability. And their last fight was in the royal tomb of the Nefertari family. Luffy has a reputation for not being especially bright. No, let's not cover our words. Luffy has a reputation for being an idiot. There. But in this fight, his intelligence became clear for using his own blood to counter the Logia abilities of Crocodile. The epic final punches reflect his strength and resourcefulness, and the way he declared made this fight even more epic. I for one believe that Crocodile had become Luffy's stepping stone to power. Luffy's fight against Charlotte Katakuri, one of Big Mom's Sweet Commander, the 1 billion belly bounty man and the user of the special Paramisha Devil Fruit Mochi Mochi, is undeniably one of the best. Their fight lasted for a staggering 21 episodes, but it was worth it, totally worth it. Even if they are in opposing sides, Luffy and Katakuri genuinely have respect for each other. They see each other as worthy, and I even think they see each other eye to eye, like no one is above or below them. They have almost the same devil fruit powers. One is rubber and the other is mochi. They have almost the same variation of attacks, and that they faced each other with all they've got. The moment Katakuri injured himself after realizing Luffy was wounded by his sister stealthily was impressive. Katakuri sees Luffy as someone who should be fought on equal grounds. They are like Roger and Whitebeard of their generation. So, for sure, this is not the last fight between them. I'd also like to point out that in this fight, Luffy started to develop his advanced observation haki to see the future. Also, Luffy unleashed the second form of his gear 4th, which was very amazing. So this fight was worth to watch. If any of you want to watch this fight again, start from episode 852 and forward. Luffy versus Rob Lucci. Now, some of you might argue why this fight is only the third in the list, and I only have one answer to that. Simply, this fight just pales in comparison to the top 1 and 2. In Inu's lobby, for the first time, Luffy felt threatened of being robbed of his crew member, not because of the looming threat of the world government, but because he realized how weak he is to protect his crew. He felt the burden of being the captain, and that he felt he should be strong enough to protect his other weak crewmates. This fear led him to developing his first power-up in the series, the Gear 2nd, and next to that is his Gear 3rd. Luffy faced the strongest cyberpole agent in history, Rob Lucci, the master of Rokoshiki techniques and the user of the Cat Zoan Devil Fruit model Leopard. We see Luffy as someone who exudes confidence, but in his fight against Rob Lucci, he struggled all throughout. Even after developing his Gear 2nd and 3rd, Luffy still found it hard to bring Rob Lucci down. Despite his fast attacks due to Gear 2nd or his literally humongous attacks using his Gear 3rd, he still had a hard time bringing Rob Lucci to his knees. I, for one, believe that it was Rob Lucci's carelessness that led him to his downfall. If he wasn't careless and dodged Luffy's Gear 3rd instead of receiving it, he could have lasted way longer. But no use crying over spilled milk. It was his mistake, and even if someone brings it up to the argument, Luffy now is much stronger than this cat, so there's no point. Going back, this fight definitely deserves the top 3 in this list. The unforgettable fight of the cat and his rubber ball. We are now in the second place, and this fight is between Luffy and Doflamingo. This, for me, is the second most epic fight of Luffy. Not because Luffy totally overpowers his opponent, which is actually the opposite, but because of the number of epic moments in his fight against Doflamingo. I'll be showing all of them here, so no worries. Also, this fight, to those of you who did not notice it, was actually Luffy's second fight against a warlord of the sea. And just like the previous, his fight against Crocodile, Luffy had a hard time dealing the finishing blow. Though he had help from others in his fight here like Claw or Gats or many more, it was still an amazing fight after all his struggles against Mingo. Now, what made this fight fascinating is that this was Luffy's fight after the post-time skip that really measured his limits. Unlike his fight against Hordy Jones in Fishman Island or Caesar Clown in Punk Hazard, he brought everything out of his pocket and used all his arsenals to defeat the warlord. He declared war against Doflamingo after defeating the controlled Bellamy. He saved Trafalgar Law from his clutches and control for years. He fought toe-to-toe in terms of Conqueror's Haki, and he unleashed his Gear 4th, the technique we've all been waiting for years. This fight totally showed the results of his 2-year concentrated training, so this fight definitely reigns as the top 2. Here, Devil Fruit Awakening was also made known, and how powerful one becomes once the Devil Fruit power is awakened. By affecting the things around him with his Devil Fruit power, Doflamingo at a point overpowered Luffy, but Luffy fought back with his brand new Gear 4 and eventually emerged victorious in the end. This match isn't also about exchange of punches and kicks or haki. Hold your breath because I know most of you did not notice it, but this fight is also about a fight between a Celestial Dragon and the Clan of D. Doflamingo, the Celestial Dragon, and Luffy of the Clan of D. This fight definitely holds a deep meaning waiting to be unraveled, because again, this is not just a fight between two pirates and their crews, but this is also a fight that started way back in time during the Void Century. Luffy versus Kaido. This for sure is the best fight ever. Like in the history of One Piece, this is so far the best of all the bests, and it isn't even finished yet. The fight of Luffy and Kaido will definitely go down in history, and in fact, already printed in history books and myth books. The fight between the monkey and the dragon, the Monkey King and the Dragon King. This is how significant this fight is. This is not just a fight in anime, but a reanimation of a myth. So, Luffy versus Kaido, one of the 4 emperors of the sea, the user of the mythical Zoan fish fruit model Azure Dragon, and the strongest creature in the world. The fact that Luffy is like a greenhorn in front of Kaido made this confrontation even more fascinating. This fight is in fact made up of another 3 sets of fights. The first fight was when Luffy rushed to Kaido after he obliterated Oden Castle with the rest of the Straw Hats in it. Luffy hit Kaido with his elephant gun and this knocked the dragon down. After knowing that Kaido attacked Tama, Luffy blindly rushed to Kaido and pummeled him even more. Luffy unleashed his signature moves one after another from Elephant Gun to Gatling Gun, but unbeknownst to all, Kaido was actually unaffected. When Kaido got back up, he easily knocked Luffy down, and that ended their first fight, a one-hit ending. Their second fight was in Onigashima. This was after Luffy half-mastered the advanced form of armament Haki or Ryo, and this fight was so epic. The big fight was opened with Luffy's hawk attack to Kaido. There's no need for more words to further describe it. It was absolutely epic. After that opening punch of Luffy, it became a battle between old generation versus the new generation. Luffy, Zoro, Law, Kid, and Hawkins confronted the 2 monsters in the form of Kaido and Big Mom. Both parties unleashed the powers of their devil fruits and skills, from Kaido's dragon abilities, Big Mom's soul abilities, Luffy's rubber abilities, Law's surgeon skills, Kid's magnetism, and the sword skills of both Zoro and Killer. The fight dragged on longer than any of them expected, and it eventually came down to Luffy versus Kaido and Big Mom versus Law and Kid. In their second fight, even after confronting so many opponents before his fight against Luffy, like the 9 Scabards, Law, Kid, and Zoro, Kaido again defeated Luffy. Even after all the attacks he unleashed and even after incorporating his attacks with Haki, Luffy still lost to Kaido. This just shows how powerful and strong Kaido is, worthy of his title, the strongest creature in the world. The third fight of Luffy and Kaido wasn't animated yet, and I do not want to spoil the rest of you of what will happen and how Kaido knocks Luffy again for a third time, and how Luffy awakened as Nika. Anyways, that's it guys. Those are the top 7 epic fights of Luffy. If you have anything in mind, feel free to comment down below.